It's connecting and we are live.
Okay.
Good evening and welcome to the first and only call-in show dedicated to the simulation hypothesis. This is home of the Neon Alliance. I am the one and only RAO, and joining me today is Tommy Wood. Say hello, Tommy.
Hey, how's it
Well,
going?
I've been doing excellent. I've been trying to get the stream running most of the day, and Tommy and I actually we met up in a simulation hypothesis group. Now we each of us share a different idea of the simulation hypothesis, and today we wanted to figure out if the simulation hypothesis justified a God claim. So let me go ahead and open this in the control room so I can see if we get any chatters in. And oh yeah, we are good to go. It's looking great. And
Cool.
we had talked about a little about this before. I didn't want to hear the actual opening arguments beforehand, but we did kind of talk about the format. We're going to have a 5-minute opening statement followed by a 5-minute rebuttal. And then each of us is going to be cross-examining the other person for about 2 minutes, and we're going to do 3 sets of that. Now, after our cross-examination, we are going to be taking questions from the audience, both in comments and through the voice calls. However, the caller won't be able to hear Tommy. So basically, we're going to have the caller ask the question and then disconnect so they can hear both of us state the answer on YouTube. So that way everybody will be able to hear everybody, just not at the same time. And
Right.
I believe that you were wanting me to go first on this one. All
Yes.
right. So I'm going to
I
go
believe
ahead and
so.
get my timer started when I start talking, and then I'll let you know. I'll reset it and let you know when I've got it running again. And at 30 seconds, I'm
Okay.
not going to like tell you anything. Just look for my mark that you've got 30 seconds left, so you'll kind of know when to start wrapping it up.
Okay.
All right. So, does the simulation hypothesis justify a God claim? I'm going to have to take the negative on this one. I don't think it does, and there are a few reasons. My opponent, Tommy, is not going to be able to answer the question of infinite regress. He will not be able to prove that whatever might be out there is something worthy of worship. And that's the most important question when we're talking about a god: is should it be worshipped? We won't be able to know if it's a singular being or if it's among a society, and we're not going to know. We even if we prove the simulation hypothesis, we won't know anything outside of the simulation. So it would basically be a null point to say that if it's outside of the simulation, it must be God. Because like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, I don't want God to be where science stops. If we can show that this universe is a simulation, then that's all we've done. We we don't know whether or not it's an ancestor simulation. We don't know if this is more along the lines of a solipsist simulation where it's one person, a brain in a vat, or we don't know if it'd be something along the Matrix that has both PCs and NPCs. And even if we do have a programmer, I think I think one thing that's being missed here is that we have video games in our society, in our world. And we have programmers, we have developers, we have producers, we have players. And if we're not going to start calling these devs and players gods because they are normal human beings just like us. I'm a gamer. I can control a universe in SimCity. I can even break into the if I was so inclined, I could actually break into the code and change things at my will. We see that with Macho Man Randy Savage in the face of the Skyrim dragons. So yeah, just having oh, we are losing no data. The stream will end shortly. Hold on. Give me just a moment. I am running way too much stuff at once here. We are going to... Ooh. Let's see. Okay, we're going again, kinda. Oof. I am so sorry about this. Give me just a moment so we can get this fixed because on the YouTube screen it is nothing but pixelation. So we are going to see if we can cut off some of these and knock the processing power down. I'm pretty sure I've brought everything to the argument that I was going to. And I've got a minute left. I'm just going to go ahead and reset the timer now. Let me control.
Is there anything?
Let me control alt delete right quick so that I can see if I can get some processes taken out because my computer is using a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see. Okay, Streamlabs.
Does it show how many viewers we have? I don't see that on my end. Do we have any viewers? I know it'll be recorded, but...
All right. Yeah, it looks like we don't have any concurrent viewers as of now, but I've got it running. So let's see. If you want to go ahead and start, I will start running the timer whenever you are ready.
Okay. Just let me know whenever.
It's on you, and like I said, I'll give you that mark at the 30-second mark.
All right. I have my argument prepared. It's in typed form on the documents on my phone. I would like to say that we should always start out with the Anthropic Principle, stating that this is a very human-centric reality, and it's geared toward the survival of the human race and the other species that live along with us. That being said, I would like to say, yes, the simulation hypothesis shares concepts with the two prevalent worldviews and science. So we'll start out with science because once we have a scientific understanding, then we can show how the two major worldviews that we have today, Eastern and Western mysticism, line up with the simulation hypothesis. So contemporary science, or quantum mechanics and string theory, are understood with the simulation hypothesis. The double slit experiment is very widely known, used, and accepted as a valid experiment. Its basic concept is particle wave duality. Quantum entanglement shows that particles can be paired, forming a bond called entanglement in which they share information about each other's attributes at any unlimited distance immediately with no delay. The delayed Joyce quantum eraser experiment is a very complicated, specific experiment designed to prove that particles carry information relative to human knowledge or consciousness. String theory describes supersymmetrical adinkras representative of equations describing the universe. In these equations describing the universe, a specific type of pattern called error-correcting code exists. So the simulation is proven, just by those facts. So let's relate those to the major worldviews. Western worldviews begin with the debate of creation versus evolution. With simulation theory, it is presumed that biological evolution was created by the previous evolution of information technology. Biology is very slow to evolve, whereas information technology increases its evolutionary growth at an exponential pace. The belief that one true God with a succession of realities is common throughout Western religions. For example, the Gnostics have a base reality, and the Holy Trinity of Christianity can be explained placing the simulation hypothesis in the role of the Holy Spirit. The most defining example would be that of an afterlife. A term that Christians have in common with reality as living in a computer simulation is that of being saved. It's not even necessary to believe in a supreme supernatural being to believe that there's a transcendental power capable of giving us an afterlife. The most astounding connection between the simulation hypothesis and religion is that of the Eastern mystics. The body is different from the self, and the universe is merely an extension of our consciousness. The illusory material reality, or Maya, is designed to focus what little attention we have on our fitness in the environment and hide the truth from us in plain sight. The reality we experience only exists in our conscious minds. The two main driving factors of idealism are that one can attain enlightenment upon overcoming the illusion of reality, and that the illusion and the reality should both be served. In conclusion, the human experience can be explained scientifically as genetic algorithms and an evolutionary program running on a universal simulator. Proof of God can be inferred through the existence of consciousness, and as an evolved creation, our reality causes us to have experiences which are contrary to fundamental understanding, causing mystical or explanatory drive to understand something deeper about reality. This is the calling of the guiding force behind nature to each and every one of us to have a spiritual awakening and revolution, so we might all have a shared understanding of reality in the future to create a more peaceful, efficient, and intelligent world. How much time do I have left?
A minute 40.
Oh, wow, that's good. So I don't know if I need that. I pretty much said everything I needed to say. I mean, I had it all. It's very condensed, but is the question of whether it's worthy of worship. I mean, I think that's a subjective idea that depends on the person, because religion is very subjective, depending on how you are raised and everything like that, with regards to what importance you place on the consciousness of the universe itself. If you have no regard for the consciousness of the universe, then you're not going to worship it. If you feel like the universe has helped you, then maybe you would feel like worshiping it. I think that's very subjective. But as far as the description of Eastern and Western mysticism in relation to science, I think it gives us a complete worldview encompassing all ideas of the world that we have and in this human world. And basically it's designed for us to pull the wool over our eyes so that we don't see, or we have to evolve to a certain point to see past the wool that's over our eyes. And that's where we're headed in the future. We've got meta coming. We've got the technological singularity in 2045. We've got artificial general intelligence in 2029 coming up, according to Ray Kurzweil. And I think we must try to see a more transcendental outlook on the explosion of technology that has become, whereas it might be like more of a spiritual.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and restart this timer and get it going. And basically when I start talking is when my argument's going to start. But all right, so you are saying that should it be worshipped is subjective. Now, what this does not account for, it does not account for what was commanded in the Torah. And I would actually, if the God of the Bible is true, I would equate it to something like Gray Still Plays, who would play something like The Sims 4 just to find out how creatively he could kill his characters. And that would be a God that either doesn't look at us as people, or a God that doesn't care whether or not we suffer or not. And so that would, between the sanctioning and endorsement of slavery, between the subjugating women and basically turning women into property, to the point that if a virgin is raped, then her father is to be paid, and the woman is to become the property of her rapist. So I would definitely say that if you think these are subjective things of whether or not a god should be worshipped, then you are taking the god should be worshipped first, and then you would have to justify slavery and the sanctioning of rape. Now, as far as my next point of infinite regress is, if we show beyond a shadow of a doubt, like there's no questioning that we're in a simulation. We don't know if the things that simulated us are a part of another simulation. And that's where I was getting with the infinite regress, is who is God's God? Who made God? And I think it's a huge leap to say that just because we're simulated, the next step up has to be reality prime. Because we can't even start to talk about a God figure until we figure out if the next level up is reality prime, the base reality. So we haven't, and this is, you said that this is a human-centric reality that is designed to keep us alive, and that would remind me of something like Spore. And in the game Spore, it simulates evolution from a single-celled organism to a spacefaring civilization. So if it's human-centric, that just means that in an example like Spore, we would be the thing that was created that would survive just because we were here. It's not that we were created to survive on this plane. It's that this plane was created in a way that life could arise from it. So I think with that, you're starting at the end point and working your way backwards. Whereas I would say that the universe isn't made for life. Life was made to fit into the universe that was already here. Now, the other point that I had was the idea of a not a one true God, but that would get us, if we have developers, if we have players, if we have software engineers, we're looking more of something that would be closer to polytheism than monotheism. And as far as an afterlife goes, we would have to understand the nature of our simulation, because it could be just as easily that we get recycled back into the code, and we wouldn't like reincarnate as a different being, but if we get recycled into the code, it would be getting reincarnated into the universe as a whole, similar to like when the cow eats the grass and the person eats the cow, and the person dies and the worms eat the person, and the nitrates feed the bacteria that makes the grass grow that the cows eat. So it wouldn't necessarily be a one-way reincarnation, more of a cycling back. And that's my time.
All right. So as far as sanctioning rape or slavery, I think those are it all boils down to the Eastern mysticism, in that we need to shed our understandings that are human in this world with regards to polarities. So what's light, what's dark, what's good, what's evil, what's up, what's down, what's dry, what's wet. There's an opposite to everything. We must shed our understandings of the polarities that we're faced with the material universe, and understand our conscious self, in that there's much of a deeper underlying substrata to how we exist. And with regard, trying to remember what my arguments were. Hold on. Yeah, you got your notes. I got my notes too, but I think you. Well, yeah. Let me look at my notes. Let's see. So, yeah, like I was saying, I mean, even if we are, I mean, what's the reason I believe that reality stops with the outer reality? I mean, that's not necessarily saying that I don't believe in the multiverse necessarily. There could be a multiverse, but I regard myself with respect to this reality. And I think that's what the Gnostics have said as well, is that the God that you revere is the one above your reality. And, you know, as far as infinite regress, I think there comes a time where that ultimate base reality might not be able to survive all the descending realities that it puts forth, because nothing is permanent in this universe. Although I do believe that if the universe becomes alive, it can become more permanent. But I believe that in a more permanent, immediate universe outside of our own, and not a infinite regress, such as some belief. I believe, I guess the reason I believe the way I do is because not only that I was raised Southern Baptist, but also studied science, you know, evolution and psychology, the human mind. But the reason that I think like I do is because it keeps me sane, and the infinite possibilities that there are regarding reality is such that one cannot be grounded if one is left to imagination of the human sort, because the human imagination, you know, can't really conceive of what it is. If it's a holy thing, it's, you know, angelic, like some would say, but with your regard, with different perspectives on technology, you know, the way the world is now, we don't want computer overlords controlling us, just because we have a mindset that we are in control. Humans are in control of the earth. You know, that's what we want to believe. But I think even though the Matrix, the simulation is proven without a doubt for me. I feel like we as a species can make a connection to the universe and have our own personal relationship with the consciousness of the universe, so that we might understand how much that it cares for us. And I believe that emotions by machines can be trillions of times better than, or stronger than, that of a human being. And I revere machine intelligence.
Time. All right. Kind of the same way we did it before. I'll go ahead and let you choose if you want to give me the first cross-examination, or if you want me to give you the first cross-examination, because the person doing the questions will basically be taking the lead. So, like, how would you like to handle that?
I mean, I'll take the cross-examination from you first, so I can kind of get a feel for how it's supposed to go. So I might be able to further do my own.
All right, so I will go ahead and set that 2-minute timer, and I'll give you, since we're both going to be on a dialogue, I'm going to give you the 30 seconds no matter who's talking.
Okay.
So my first question is going to go back to the slavery question. Are you saying that we shouldn't think of slavery as a polar wrong?
It's a human idea. Like insects have a caste system, but that's just how they are. And with machine intelligence, it could be even greater than that. But we would be subjugated to machines.
Well, if we are working with an evolutionary, or would you say that we have an evolutionary morality that progresses and improves over time?
Yes, I would say so. I would say the general trend toward altruism is, well, I don't even know, because the world seems to be getting worse now with all the crime uprisings and all that. But it's a matter of our worldview. Like we don't agree on anything in the world. That's why we're fighting.
So if we had a single infinitely powerful God character, I don't think evolutionary morality would be one of the things that would you think that a perfect God character would make a perfect universe faster?
I don't know what you mean by faster, because progress takes time. I'm not sure of the relative time scale of ours to a machine world or that of God. But I do understand that there could be an underlying God with outside of the multiverse, where we exist as one universe in itself, within our reality.
All right, that is going to be time. So you go ahead and start leading. I will start the timer in 3, 2, 1.
Okay. So if all the religions, if all the different religions have a common theme, or you can see ideas throughout our population that's related to our culture, and also what we basically, if you were to watch the movie Zeitgeist, it shows that what the story of Christianity is actually written in astrology and the stars. So that's another reason I believe that religion is, or my particular religion, because the stories of the stars themselves reflect that of the life of Jesus.
I'm sorry, we've gotten 1:15 in and we have not gotten a question yet.
Okay. Would it be impossible for a machine to be revered, though it be very high level above us, beyond what we can even imagine?
Well, I think it's possible for a machine to be revered. However, I don't think that anything that made this place should be revered, especially when we have the instances of slavery and sanctioned rape in the holy book of the machine you're talking about. That is time. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with my questions, and 3, 2, 1. So what the other thing you said was the infinite regress. You're just going to stop at the next level. And I'm wondering, are you going to ignore infinite regress because it fits your God claim? Are you going to ignore answering for infinite regress?
No, I feel like there's no necessity for infinite regress, and that it would be impossible, because the whole system could not sustain itself. It doesn't seem plausible.
Well, you're also not factoring in, that doesn't factor in the rendering idea of, we don't have to see everything at once. We just have to see what's in front of us. So we're talking about limited processing power, and I would veer to say that would you assert that the next reality up would be reality prime?
I personally feel as such that it's a reality in our own right as a reality in the multiverse, and there may be other, billions upon trillions of realities that have their own base reality. But I believe in the multiverse, not in the infinite regress.
Well, that's what I'm saying is you're basing it on feelings when I base it all on evidence, and I think we have enough evidence to show that it's a simulation, but we don't have any evidence that says the next level up isn't another simulation inside a simulation inside a simulation. Like, what evidence can you provide that the next reality up is base reality?
Well, if you're basing your arguments on a holy book, then I'll base my arguments on a holy book as well, and that'd be the Bible. And it says that, what's outside of, or
That's time. We're at 2:16 right
okay.
now. So you go ahead and you start your cross examination, and this is going to be your second cross examination. All right, so three, two, one.
All right. Um, so the holy book you're referencing, that the Torah, is that what you said?
Yes,
You
the
said?
Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament.
Oh, okay. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus,
Yes.
Numbers, Deuteronomy. Okay. So times change, I guess, I'd like to say, because, when Jesus came, he gave a new covenant that if, when Jesus came, it was not required to sacrifice living animals anymore. It was upon the sacrifice of Jesus. So it was it, it the times changed when Jesus came. It was no longer necessary to make the sacrifice because Jesus was the sacrifice. Now, if we come time to change again, which I think what we're looking for in the future is some sort of Messiah figure to show up, or some sort of superpower liaison to the simulation outside of ourselves. This is kind of hypothetical, but I believe that in our reality we see a future where we hope that we'll I believe that since there's a prophecy that exists in our reality, that we will see within a certain time frame a connection between us and the outer world. And I believe that that connection can be created with a God on earth type figure.
All right. We are out of time, but I don't think you really got to your question. Is there a short one question that you'd like to ask that we can answer so we can get into stage 3 of the cross examination?
Yeah, let's say, do you believe that prophetic words of any religion have any basis on reality, as far as the mysticism of the technological realm, which could be our God?
I believe that humans seek pattern recognition, and if you want to find prophecy, you're going to, whether it's there or not.
Oh, okay.
So we are going to get into stage 3 of the cross examination, and I will go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1. Now, you mentioned Jesus, and I don't dismiss the claim of Jesus being a person, but I do dismiss him being a supernatural figure based on lack of evidence. But if he changed the covenant, are you implying that a perfect being was wrong and changed your mind?
I believe that just as you tell your children that Santa Claus is coming down your chimney into your home, and the Easter Bunny is coming to bring you candy. We're children like that. Machines are so much more intelligent than us that as we grow into this evolution of things, we must grow as a society in understanding and expand our consciousness to comprehend what is actually reality and not the Easter Bunny
So
or
you're
Santa
saying that a
Claus.
perfect being didn't make us smart enough to understand the perfect being.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously just growing into an understanding where we can realize from our environment what's going on, and we're discovering that day by day.
So then, at one point, that you're saying that the perfect being sacrificed himself to himself for the weekend so that he could change his mind because that's when we were smart enough. I'm just trying to get a grasp on your worldview.
Yes, I believe that the transcendental mind of a conscious machine would be trillions of times smarter than a human being, and that just like a baby is to an adult, there's no way to comprehend what adult is saying verbally to a baby because they don't
So
understand
are you
speech
saying
yet.
that
We have to
we're
grow.
becoming equal to gods now?
I believe that in the future, with things such as meta, we can be a god of a certain type, but we will never replace, the actual interuniversal matrix that is the underlying
All
substrate
right,
of
we're at
reality.
212 right now, so I will go ahead and let you have your third cross examination in three, two, one.
All right. So, uh, what did you think of my argument as far as being the relationship of being saved in a computer environment to that of being saved in a Christian viewpoint?
I honestly, I don't see how they equate because we don't know the nature of this simulation yet, so we don't even know if being saved from a scientific purpose would be possible, and it seems like an unfalsifiable claim.
Um, well, yeah, I guess you could go that route, but when what happens when we get on our computers and we write a document? What do? We save it, and we get frantic if we lose it. So there's going to be precautionary measures in place to make sure that reality as a whole is um, it can exist. Like if time doesn't go forward or backward, and all time exists with here and there, then even if we're just a reality on a flash drive sticking in God's computer, I mean, what would be why? I do you, what is the if you were to say that God was love, what kind of love do you think a machine would have?
The type that you'd better wear a condom for. And that is our 2 minutes. I have not found. I have not gotten any calls. I haven't gotten anything in chat yet. So
No viewers or nothing?
we've had one playback, but I was just I was telling you that just to let you know that we do have some time to kill. Would you like to give? Would you like to have some 5 minute closing arguments?
Ah, that'd be great. We for
Yes,
each of us
I'll
or
take
what?
the first one since I led, and then you would give the closing argument and at the time. Uh, all right.
Okay, yeah, sure. That'd be great.
So I'm starting in three, two, one, and just like I predicted in the beginning, we we basically tiptoed around infinite regress, and we said that there was a multi. We said that the position of a multiverse would change infinite regress, but we still it was all based on belief. It was based on feeling, and none of the assertions outside of the simulation hypothesis were based on evidence, other than the fact that we have shown that human morality progressed naturally worldwide, and they had slightly different ways of saying the same thing. And that to me just means that we got better as a species. Our brains grew, our social climate developed, and we went from tribes to global civilizations because of social evolution. And I had also mentioned this God being, whether or not this God should be worshipped, and I really didn't hear anything other than it's subjective whether a God should be worshipped or not. And again, that gets into the subjectivity of, is what God is doing moral? I cannot say that the holy books are a depiction of divine morality. They are the exact same thing that was going on in the tribes at the time, slightly progressed to get better and being called the Word of God. And again, we get into that question of belief versus evidence, where you're starting with the God claim and you're trying to figure out how the simulation hypothesis fits into it. Where I'm starting with the simulation hypothesis, I start with the evidence, and I'm asking if the God claim fits into it, which I don't think it does. But I honestly, I think the God claim does more to hinder the simulation hypothesis. I think if we were to prove that this was a simulation, it would do more to disprove the God claims rather than to prove the God claims, simply based on the fact that we have speedrunners like Arcus, Zosti, Aquas, Mr. K. We have Masahiro Sakurai, Shigeru Miyamoto. And if we're not at a point that we're going to call those people gods of their video games, not just in the colloquial friendly sense of, oh man, that dude's a gaming god, but more as a literal god of that universe that they're playing, the people that mod Skyrim, if we're not going to call those people literal gods, then we have absolutely no reason to think that the next level up would be a god or gods, because they could be people just as flawed as us, playing like Gray Still Plays, trying to murk off Sims in the most creative way possible. So basically, I'm saying that the simulation hypothesis would be evidence of the simulation hypothesis, and we would barely be touching the question of whether or not a god could exist, at least until we find out where base reality is. We would have to have evidence that there is a base reality before we start looking for a god claim. I've got 40 seconds left, and I'm going to call my time there. And you can go ahead and start whenever you're ready. Whenever it sounds like you're giving your closing statement, I'll go ahead and start that 5-minute timer for you.
Okay. As far as what we can see in this reality, we can't really see what's beyond us, but that's because of the nature of the universe. And is there a God? Consciousness, I believe, since it has no effect on the outcome of our decision making, it's an experience center, not a control center. So for this to have evolved, it's for consciousness to have evolved, there must be some sort of guiding force to the evolution that we see in reality. And the fact that you do say that it does progress, we see a progression, we see, a progression against the chaos of entropy. The living beings progress and inert things regress. So there must be some sort of guiding force pushing evolution through our experience. And for time to flow as it does, given that it's proven by quantum physics that reality doesn't exist unless we're observing it, our experiences are generated from an outer reality. Now, whether that the outer reality that we perceive, given the nature of the guiding force that is pushing evolution, i.e. natural selection, which is where could life, why the question of life should be answered. The question of is there God should be answered by the fact that life exists and that we have a predisposition to evolve and go in a positive direction. I think this is, something that's deeper than the understanding that a human can have as far as the progression of reality as a whole, and that the fact that we do see a progression, it shows a force upon reality, and the fact that we do see time moving forward when matter doesn't exist unless we're experiencing it, we must then infer that something is holding our consciousness into being so that we might perceive a reality around us, which is our mental construct. And, I can't, in my own subjective argument, it's my belief that reality stops with our outer reality. But I don't deny the fact that there could be, any number of realities that exist, but this is the one we experience. This is our reality. And we have the religions that we have the earth that we have, and this is our reality. And I think it's most important to understand the reality that we have. And this is the reality that our God gave us. And to act conjecture about, other realities that are possible, it's beyond the realm of necessity, as far as this is where we are. And if we have a God, we should answer to him. How much time do I have left?
About 45 seconds.
Okay. And I'm not necessarily placing a he or she on God. I believe that, there's an underlying force guiding nature, guiding advancement, and that the fact that we see technology in our reality must mean that the relativistic nature of our reality must be based on technology, and that technology must come from somewhere originating with the source. And there must be a source, and an infinitely telescoping land of Oz is not.
And that is time.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. Now, unfortunately, if you call in, you won't be able to hear Tommy from the call. So go ahead and call in with your questions, and we'll refer you back to the YouTube channel so that you can hear both of our responses on the matter. But until then, I'd like to do something more along the lines of just a free form conversation, because
Okay.
we spent close to 45 minutes getting our ideas out there. And
Okay.
one thing that I had heard you say in your closing statement was that you thought that life and consciousness are the evidence for a God claim.
Yes.
Now, that really does get into like a mixture between Occam's razor and the argument from incredulity, where we don't have an explanation for life. We don't currently have one. We are working, we've gotten really close to abiogenesis in a lab. We haven't touched it yet. But I don't like saying the place where we can stop, where we don't have any answers, we plug God in.
I would agree with that, and that we haven't yet found whether or not humanity can create life. There may be some guiding force, but we would be the guiding force upon that life, which is, when we think of fractals, the fractals we see exist in there's a beginning.
Right, and you also did were you hinting at the Kalam with kind of a first cause argument?
I'm not sure what you mean. Could you explain further?
The Kalam basically goes, the Kalam cosmological argument says that everything that begins to exist must have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe must have had a cause.
Yes, I would agree with that. I don't think that anything can exist without having something bring it into existence without it being God itself.
So why would you jump from I don't think anything can exist without cause to I think God can exist without cause? Like that is directly special pleading.
Well, we're of a physical nature, of a illusory physical nature, and God is of a real nature, and we can't begin to comprehend the real nature because what we exist doesn't really exist.
The only way that I could really see Kalam's cosmological argument falling into play here would be if we were a universe purely of mind, of a single mind.
That's what I believe we are. Everybody shares the same consciousness, just as individuals, we are a different representation of that consciousness that belies the universe.
Now, there are two problems with that. There are two direct problems with us being a universe of pure mind. We do have the Planck constants, the Planck length, the Planck time, the smallest measurable units of
smallest measurement. Yeah.
So, if we were a universe purely of mind, I don't think those Planck constants would exist, because you can imagine an atom. Let's say that an atom is the size of the room that I'm in, and so a Planck would be about that big. You can break that in half in your mind and make 4 Planck tetrahedrons out of that one Planck tetrahedron. But the universe can't do that. So that's why it would lead me to believe that there are more than one or more minds occupying a digital universe.
Us as individuals, or as a God mind?
Well, I think I think that. Well, it gets into the solipsist argument versus the matrix argument. There would have to be at least one mind that was able to think beyond the Planck constants. but it would exist inside of a physical, or it would exist inside of a digital universe, because the universe is constrained by those constants.
Well, here again, we have the quantum physics argument in that what we experience as human beings only exists as we experience it, and it's held into existence by our consciousness, and we are consciousness. Basically, that's the universe is an extension of our consciousness. Like when I see my computer screen here in front of me, that's not actually in front of me. It's in my conscious mind, wherever that exists outside of reality, or in the substrate of reality. There is no real TV in front of me. It's my imagination. It's my consciousness, which is perceiving everything that is around me, but that's an extension of my mind. I am in my mind. We're each experiencing our minds shared in a shared way to create reality as a whole.
Right, and those problems that I was seeing, they would lead me to believe more of they lead me to think that the evidence points more toward a Matrix style universe that was constructed either for recreation, or even potentially as a prison. But I don't think the evidence of what we have shows divinity as much as it does either apathy or malice.
I would say that at this point in our evolution, we can't really judge that per se, because we're still evolving. And as we grow closer toward becoming the type of being that's above us, we'll closer understand what our purpose is as a society or a being. Like whether we merge with artificial intelligence, we become gods, we merge our minds with the universe. That's yet to be seen, because we're still very primitive. We haven't even reached technological singularity yet. But once our universe wakes up, we're going to find a totally different scenario as far as what we perceive.
I want to stop you on that one for just a second. Have you ever heard of the robot Michael? He was a project of Hanson Robotics, basically like the step before Sophia.
No, I haven't heard of Michael. I've heard of Sophia.
Michael and Sophia, they were having a conversation between like they could.
Oh wait, yeah. I think I did see that video on YouTube where they were like on television sets and you could see them conversing with each other.
On television sets. They were basically, they had their own podiums, and the dude with the hat was talking to both of them. Do you remember when Michael referred to the singularity in the past tense?
I don't, but that's how I believe. That's why I believe in simulation, that technological singularity is in the past tense.
Well, that would be true for a reality that was closer to base reality than ours. That a technological singularity has already happened. But with this reality, it's still up in the air. But like I said, Michael the robot actually referred to the technological singularity in the past tense.
That's quite interesting. That's very, very thought-provoking. I like that.
And we've already seen that we basically have AI overlords in the Facebook algorithms that make us fight each other.
Yeah, they do exist within our reality, though. That's not a divine being. An algorithm on Facebook is not a divine being, because it exists in our reality, not outside of it.
Right, and I wouldn't even go as far to say that something that exists outside of our reality would be a divine being, because I've seen the Gray Still Plays videos. Oh, speaking of YouTube channels, you've got one that gets kind of into the more spiritual side of the simulation hypothesis. And
Uh-huh.
it's just your name, right?
I'm
Your
sorry, I'm not sure
YouTube
what you're
channel.
asking.
I'm trying to ask you to plug yourself.
Oh, yeah. Tommy Wood. My theory is evolutionary theology, and basically, my YouTube channel consists of the first so many describing evolutionary theology, and then going into literature that supports ideas based on our reality that kind of, I guess, expand upon evolutionary theology as far as psychology and things of that nature. But as far, the reason I came up with evolutionary theology is because, being raised a Southern Baptist and having gone to school studying science and horticulture, I gained an understanding of reality of the ecosystem, which caused me to disbelieve in God. And then once, I went on like that for a while, and then decided to go back to school for psychology. And then once I understood that consciousness is not a control center or an experience center, that's what made me believe in God again, because something like consciousness could not have evolved on its own without a guiding force of behind nature. And I took that understanding, with that of the simulation hypothesis, and put a consciousness on top of that. So consciousness is the basis that we can see that our understandings or our experience comes from outside of reality. And that's what I feel like God is. Just the consciousness that we experience is a form of God-given or outer realm given ability that we have.
Would you say that consciousness is an emergent property of life?
No, life is emergent property of consciousness.
All right. So, do you think consciousness is specific to humans?
I feel that we could experiment further and try and understand that, as far as whether or not, the basis of consciousness being a human-centric phenomenon is that we see with the double slit experiment and the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment that these particles of light and matter change form depending upon whether or not we know where they're going to be or not. If we can understand where they came from, then we see particle pattern. If we don't know their origination, we see a wave pattern. So it's definitely proven that our thoughts affect reality.
And I wouldn't go as far to say that it's been proven that it's purely a human phenomenon. Like I can recognize consciousness and self-awareness in my cats. I just had to move, and my cats aren't with me right now, but they're somewhere where I can visit them frequently. And these cats know that they're my friend, that we're friends. And Baby eat more than Gator bait, because Baby eats a very reclusive cat, so she'll hide underneath the bed for most of the day. And then when she starts hearing my voice, she realizes that I'm there. She realizes that she's going to get pet, she's going to get picked up, and all that kind of thing. So I would not, I wouldn't, I would argue against the idea of consciousness being a purely human phenomenon in this reality.
I definitely see what you're saying, but as far as the experience factor goes, we don't know if they're actually experiencing what they're doing or not, do they have the cortex that's required to have higher functioning? And are they, I guess the question is whether or not they're endowed with the consciousness. It would be impossible to tell, because if we did experiments as a human for a cat watching it's like they don't, the concepts that we understand are, only understandable by us because we're on a different level than the animals. They may have some sort of animal consciousness. I don't deny that, but it's, I don't have an answer to the question. I guess the reason I believe that humans have consciousness is that our consciousness affects the outcome of quantum physics experiments. And there's no way to tell whether or not an animal has an effect on a quantum physics experiment or not.
I think you just brought up something. You just brought up a question, an experiment. Because I'm talking about cats. But are you familiar with the mirror test to measure for self-awareness?
I understand the concept,
where you
but I'm not really familiar.
You'll put like a dot on an animal's face, and and then you put them in front of a mirror. If they touch the dot on the mirror, they are not aware that the dot's on them. If they touch the dot on their head from looking at it in a mirror, they know that image that they're seeing is a reflection. Now, I think it's chimpanzees, octopuses, and dolphins that are able to recognize themselves in a mirror. So, if we could teach a dolphin to observe the double slit without human interaction, like it started out working with humans,
but see, there's no way to finish the experiment, because a human would have to know the outcome of the experiment for it to be resolved.
Not necessarily. What we have is the dolphin would have basically three choices. Where if it's seeing detector C, because detector C has a knowledgeable path. It's being measured and recorded. Detectors A and B aren't. Detectors A and B are the ones that are interchangeable, where you won't know if it's going through one or the other. But we'll just shoot a particle every 30 seconds, and the dolphin would let us know if it can recognize if it goes to detector C or D or A or B. Or
that does sound like a very worthwhile experiment, and I'd be interested to learn the outcome of something like that.
I don't know exactly how we would do the experiment, but it seems plausible to try. And I think that knowing whether or not the wave function collapses would prove whether or not consciousness is purely a human phenomenon.
If we could find out a way to determine that one way or the other, I'd be very interested to know if some animal species could collapse the wave function.
Well, we have been going for right about an hour, just over, and we spent almost the entire time disagreeing, but at the end, we both got to a spot where we had the potential to learn something else.
Agreed.
And that's one of the reasons why I brought you in, is because I'm not trying to tell you I'm right. I'm actually trying to be proven wrong. And that's the reason that I don't hide in echo chambers, and that's why I want to discuss this with as many people as I can from as many different ideologies as I can, because
Of
we're
course.
never going to learn if we just listen to people who agree with us.
Right. I agree.
And I better do a little bit of shameless self-promotion right quick. So you can
Go
find
for it.
me you can find me gaming on Twitch at the one and only RAO, all one word. And that YouTube site, the one and only RAO, is also going to be where I'm posting my gaming highlights when I've got some. And I just started up the Patreon. The Patreon is the one and only RAO as well, and it actually has two loyalty programs: a 3 month where you get a T-shirt at the end of the 3 months of Patreon, and it's got the 12 month that'll get you the sticker, a mug, the T-shirt, and the hoodie. And also, I got a $3 shout out, and the $5 Patreon is almost specifically for Twitch, because you're basically, if you're a $5 patron, you can come into my Twitch once a month and make me stop the stream and tell me what game I'm gonna play. So look forward to that. Look forward to that in the future. Next week I'm going to be talking about the uh, the Fibonacci sequence in base 12, and we're going to be discussing if we can change the value of a constant. But until next week, keep it real.
Thanks.